You ever notice how long it takes a minute to pass when you're not wanting it to? Or when you want a minute to pass? Yeah, here we go. Hey everybody, my name's Chris. I go by Primetime CP23. This is going to be a short podcast discussing Hearthstone, the current meta, and what happens if they do decide to nerf Dr. Boom. This is my friend Jake.
Hello, Jake, Sietod, one or the other.
I personally have been playing card games since about 2004. I was 12 at the time. I started with a game based on wrestling called Raw Deal. It's a pretty fun game. So I have a pretty long history in card games and just video games in general. What about you, Jake?
The first game I can remember playing is Final Fantasy II, which is actually Final Fantasy IV, back on the Super Nintendo when I was like 9. So video games have been with me my whole life, and I've had probably 10 years of experience in various card games too. So
Yeah.
it's been a big part of my life, obviously.
And of course, our biggest point of contention is that I have never played a Final Fantasy game.
Our biggest point of contention is your Halo skills, but Final Fantasy is up too.
Yeah, alright. I'll give you that.
That's for another stream.
Yeah, we'll get into that on another stream. We couldn't figure out what we wanted to do to pass the time while we're talking, so we figured we may as well just play Hearthstone against each other. So I'll go ahead and accept this challenge.
Just do silly decks.
Just silly decks?
Yeah, just silly decks so we can talk while not really have focus.
Okay, I'll do a silly deck then. Alright, well, just for everybody, so that you're aware of what's going on, I got a message from Jake this afternoon saying that they're probably going to nerf Dr. Boom, which really inspired this podcast.
So, for anyone who doesn't know, Dr. Boom is a card from Gnomes and Goblins, the Hearthstone expansion. It's a 7/7, 7 attack, 7 health, 7/7 for 7, plus 7 mana, and when it comes down, it brings 2 1/1 bots with it. Now, when these bots die, they randomly deal 1 to 4 damage to a random enemy. It doesn't seem like much, but it's a really big deal because this means that not only is it 7 power on 7 mana, but it also brings this huge amount of random damage that can just completely level an entire field.
Yeah. And it is commonly called Dr. Balanced. It is pretty much a staple in all competitive decks except for like Face Hunter, maybe this crappy Priest deck that I'm playing, but I mean this deck isn't really in the meta, so
Some versions of Face Hunter running.
yeah, Face Hunter, Mid-Range Hunter, they definitely run, or a Mid-Range Hunter definitely runs Dr. Boom. I guess sometimes the Face Hunter will run it.
It's usually the top.
Yeah. And it's just played in every deck because it's so good. It is a legendary, but it's also the legendary that most people craft first. In my opinion, if they nerf this card, it's going to completely kill control decks, because as of right now, already there's not enough good control decks out there in the current meta. So I think if they nerf Dr. Boom, it's going to finish killing off the control decks. The fact that it may not be a big deal for some control decks, but for some classes like Hunter, where Dr. Boom is the biggest creature it would ever run for any reason, that makes it pretty important for that deck if they want to... Well, I'm sorry about that too, Jake. Anyway, before Jake started distracting me, I was on a tirade. I guess this was a bad choice of deck because This is a very aggro deck, and in general, I'm against aggro decks to some extent. Like we were talking about earlier, Jake, aggro is important, but only if there are enough control decks to offset it. Because what we've got right now in Hearthstone is a meta that is so focused on aggro decks, rush decks, that nothing else even gets played.
So part of the problem I have with what you're saying here, I know what you're saying. Aggro is, in your mind, aggro is the big bully of any game, right? It's the one deck you never want to see. Am I right in that?
To some extent, yeah.
Okay. So what you've got to realize about aggro, if aggro was gone, then control would rule.
Yeah.
While that doesn't sound like a bad idea, at the same time, that makes the game boring. It makes any game. Because all you're going to be doing is saying aggro, 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 everything. Or not aggro, control it. Aggro's whole thing is, I throw cheap creatures down, I throw multiple creatures down a turn if I can. My weakness is that I cannot keep cards in my hand, so you always know what I'm playing. I swear to God, if you healing circle me, I will have to kill you.
Where's the double healing circle when I need it?
Right. But
I like this deck.
But the fun part about aggro is that it's always the risk reward play for aggro is still there, even if it doesn't look like there's any risk. The risk is I'm playing everything I have. Do you have a way to stop this? If so, I'm dead.
Yeah. And of course, once in a while you'll face a player that is actually smart and will know how to board wipe you, have the resources to get everything off of your board so that completely lost my train of thought. But most of the time when you're playing against these rush decks, if they gain any kind of board position, if you can't stop their early game in some way, whether that be just, dark bombing a knife juggler, or, getting rid of just a few of the cards that are going to build up and create a problem for you. Because, like this card, may not seem like much, but if you threw a couple of those on there, it suddenly becomes a lot more daunting to deal with that 4 damage that you're going to take to the face every turn. And, I mean,
See, Hearthstone, the funny thing about Hearthstone is it plays a very precarious balance with all of this. In Magic, it's not a problem, because in Magic you have cards get banned, you'll have cards that get chained, not chained, but, they learn from their mistakes, and everything is strictly better moving on, or strictly worse moving on. You won't have cards that do outrageous things, and the health pool is much more manageable. So, like in Magic, the big staple of can I win? There's meta. The meta is typically control, aggro, and mid-range, just like Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Typically exactly what you see in most card games. Now, the only balance to be struck is mid-range usually beats control. No, aggro usually beats control. Mid-range beats aggro. Control beats mid-range.
Yeah.
But the problem with Hearthstone is that some of these cards, it's like they're still learning to play card. They're still learning to make card games, because so many of these cards just twist everything around them.
Yeah.
Dr. Boom is good, but it's broken.
Yes, Dr. Boom is a little overpowered.
Alex Strauss is good, but she's broken.
I love Alex Strauss.
I mean, but there's so many of these big legendaries that no other card game would have ever produced, just because the sheer power of them. Alex Strauss allows a 30-point life swing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Ysera, a 4/12 for 7 mana, 8 mana. Doesn't seem like much, but she gives these cards that do just so many ridiculous things.
Yes.
Tyrion Forward Ring, a got 6/6.
Oh god, Tyrion.
6/6 for 6, no problem. He has Divine Shield Taunt. Okay, a little bit more of a problem. We're kind of getting Sunwalker here. But then it's like, oh, he also gives you a 5/3 sword and he dies.
That ends the game.
Yeah, so like if you don't kill him, if you don't find a way to kill him turn 1 that he drops, he's gonna hit you for 12. And then he's got a 15 damage sword behind him. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. That's 27 points of damage. That's insane when your life pool is only 30.
We were talking about dragons, so I figured I'd play my dragon deck.
I'm playing dragons too.
Oh god. But see, I think in my opinion, instead of nerfing Dr. Boom, they need to find a way to make less aggro decks. Because like you were talking about, aggro is important. You do need aggro decks to kind of balance out some of the control. My problem is when you play on the ranked ladder, 9 out of 10 games you play are aggro decks. And I'm not a terribly high-level player. Like, I hit rank 8 last season. That's as high as I've been. So it may balance out a little bit when you get up towards Legend. But for us casual players, there is nothing but aggro. You only face aggro. And if you're the one playing these more control-y decks, it just gets monotonous to play against the same aggro decks over and over and over again. Once in a while, you'll get a combo druid. Once in a while, you'll face a control warrior. But in general, you're just facing face hunter, you know, aggro paladin. You're facing demon zoo.
I mean,
And that's pretty much it.
But there is variance. I would say it's probably 75, 25. 75% of them are aggro decks that give you that.
Yeah.
But the 25% is very important because you look at the amount of players who play this game, and they've got a staggering amount of people that actually actively play.
It's ridiculous how many people actively play.
So if you take that into account, and then figure on top of that, let's say half of these people are actually playing aggro. That means 50% of the population is now out the window as far as anything else but aggro. So 25% of the remaining and 25% of the remaining on each population is control and mid-range. But there's so many people still playing aggro that that's all we're running into.
Yeah.
Ladder. And that's the problem.
Yeah, my problem is just the sheer percentage of games I play against aggro decks. And speaking of Dr. Boom,
I wonder what he drew.
something to look forward to. Sorry, Jake.
No, I got something to look forward to. Let's screw that. And that's part of the problem I have with Hearthstone is the format. I don't like that it's one game.
Yeah.
Yeah, blow that up, please.
You're welcome.
The fun part about like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh or any other card game is that it's played in best of 3 always.
Yeah, and it is in like the more competitive Hearthstone at tournaments and stuff. It is best of 3 or best of 5 series, but because we're playing just ranked games, for instance.
Right, but what I'm saying is that in those other games, you're also allowed to build a sideboard.
True.
So you can build this sideboard to cover some of the weaknesses of your deck. Like in Magic, if you're playing against an aggro deck, you've got something stuck in your sideboard if you're weak to aggro that can just handle whatever they can throw at you. As long as you draw that card, it's not a problem. But Hearthstone, you see it all the time about people talking about, well, edit the deck for this, edit the deck for that.
Yeah, teching in certain
certain
cards.
As soon as you tech something in the ladder, then you end up fighting something else. Granted,
Yeah.
we're 75% aggro right now. Teching in something that's aggro is a safe call.
It is.
But at the same time, you're not dealing with a 15-card sideboard. You're dealing with, you've got 30 cards base.
Yeah, 30 cards is all you get. And that And I was actually watching a streamer the other day, and he was talking about how it's a good thing, or rather, it's a bad thing that Hearthstone is 30 cards because it stops people from being really bad. Because in most games, when you've got, you know, a base 60 cards, and 60 cards is the minimum, that doesn't seem like a big problem. But then you play games against people that are running 68, 70 cards, and they're not getting the good cards that they need, and you are, because you're playing you're playing with less. So, yeah.
60, they're running cards 2 and 68, which doesn't sound much, but it's a staggering difference.
Yeah, exactly. And then the legendaries, you know, most decks, I mean, of course, control decks are going to be more than aggro, but I think most decks probably run somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 or 4 legends, maybe.
I would agree. It's between 2 and 4.
Yeah. Like, control decks sometimes get into a few more, but...
And aggro decks usually run a few less.
Yeah. Aggro decks usually run a few less, but because... Damn. That sucks. But, I mean, those 3 or 4 legends you're playing, plus the maybe 4 or 5 cards that you're running one-offs of, like that, they don't really make up for having 2 of, you know, this. It doesn't make up for having 2 of those.
The argument I've seen for... Oh, yeah! The argument that I've seen for 30-card decks in Hearthstone makes sense.
Yeah.
Magic, the only other really big card game right now is Magic. We've got smaller card games like Yu-Gi-Oh!, the Pokemon TCG, the My Little Pony TCG. These are all out there, but to currently say that they're on the same level as Magic is wrong.
No. Magic is the game. It has been for a while. There was a time, I think, when Yu-Gi-Oh! Was on par with Magic, but that time has long passed.
I agree. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still growing, but Magic is growing faster. But,
yeah.
You know, so if Hearthstone was to be compared directly to Magic, you've got mana cards in Magic, you've got all these different deck building strategies in Magic, which matter. The fact that mana is not a thing in Hearthstone, as far as coming out of your deck to put cards in your mana slot, it makes it so the game is much more balanced.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it makes it so your deck is also much smaller, so the variance is far more controlled, which I don't like. I don't like the idea of all players being on an even keel in the deck building part at the very beginning.
Yeah, because then the only thing that you really have to think about is which hero are you running.
Right.
And the people who are running, say, Rogue, for instance, in general, they're going to have a weaker arsenal to deal with than, say, Warlock, just from what they've done to to Rogues, because they've just nerfed the crap out of Rogue.
And see, that's another thing I don't like about Hearthstone as opposed to Magic. You have so many limitations in Hearthstone. You choose a class. That idea was great, but then you also take and put abilities in the cards in the classes themselves. And while that's did you really just get that off the portal?
Yes, I did. I was pretty impressed with that.
And while that's applicable to like Magic in the sense of colors, at the same time in Magic you can splash additional colors, so you can run red, black, green, but you can't go Guardian, you can't go Druid, Mage.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a thing.
And I actually spent a lot of time playing the World of Warcraft card game, the one that led up to Hearthstone.
Yeah.
And it was a 60-card base game. Like Magic, it was basically Magic, only with 9 possible heroes. Well, I think there was 9 or 10 hero classes, because they also had Death Knight in addition to the current 9 heroes that you have in Hearthstone. But in in the original World of Warcraft card game, it was a 60 card deck, and you could play any card out of your deck as mana, which yes, exactly. Kaijudo Duel Masters, which I played a lot of both of those too. It was just like those, yeah. Well, that's fine and good. Whatever they want to do is fine. But they made it the actual deck building aspect. I think they simplified it a lot for Hearthstone. And they tried to make it a lot faster game, which obviously they did. Because in general, your games aren't going to last that long in Hearthstone.
You'll have 10 minutes max.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like Control Warrior versus Control Warrior, Fatigue Wars, maybe half an hour at the most. So, I don't know, there's a lot of things about this game that I don't necessarily like. And one thing that I don't like is nerfing cards. I understand that it's comparable to banning cards, but at the same time, like I was talking about earlier, that streamer that was saying, you know, having 30 card decks doesn't allow some people to be really bad at the game. Nerfing does the same thing, because it lets you keep playing the card, it just makes the card worse.
Well, I think nerfing is not comparable to banning in these other games. Because nerfing, I think Blizzard has found a unique take on changing how difficult things are. Since they're able to nerf things, it makes it so anything that's broken, anything that can be abused, instead of having to wait 4 months and banning it completely, they can say, okay, we're just going to nerf it. You can still play it. It's still going to be viable. It just won't be stupid.
Yeah.
And I like that.
In general, I think I like the nerfing system. It's just, I wish there was a way that they could nerf aggro decks in general. I know that's not possible. That's not something that they could viably do. But I think if they could create, instead of nerfing like one card at a time, if they could do, you know, 3 or 4 cards in one just big nerf patch.
That's what they usually do. They usually do a few nerfs at a time. I think Grand Tournament was a good step towards changing aggregates. Just Card True Heart's effect on Warrior is insane.
Yeah.
But like Lotheb was an obvious shot at Miracle.
Yes.
That obviously, you know, you're not going to do a bunch of comboing on the turn after I play this, because it's a huge thing.
Yeah. Lotheb was one of the many ways that Blizzard decided, okay, we're going to kill Miracle Rogue now. Which, it needed changed, maybe not to die. It needed... Oh, it needed to die?
It needed to die. It was Miracle Rogue is the equivalent of Miracles from Magic. It is a deck that sees 70+% play, that takes a long time to play correctly, and if you mess it up, you really pay for it. But at the same time, it's not a deck to play easily. So you've got people who are extremely skilled at playing the deck, that pilot the deck, that still take, you know, rope burning turns the entire game. And then you've got people that are less skilled with the deck that still take rope burning turns the entire game. And their decisions are far less easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an easy deck to play. You've got to be able to manage everything. And I think it was the right move to kill the deck right now.
Yeah. Well, and I did get 1600 dust for it, which I actually used to craft this card. The people who are watching in my stream know. I'll tell Jake later. because I don't think he remembers, was actually the 3rd legend that I crafted.
Ragnaros or Salamas.
Those were the first 2.
Australia.
Maybe.
Not good. I wonder how much damage that's gonna do. All the damage. Thanks, buddy.
I love it. I've never actually had someone do that to me. No, I mean, I've never had someone actually play Chilma and then not have the dragon. It's hilarious. I've done it, and yeah, I've done it. I've dropped Chilma when I didn't have dragons in hand. It's hilarious. It didn't occur to me that you were gonna do it, though. I figured... I mean, I was looking and I'm just like, oh, well, there's no way he's dumb. He'll have the dragon.
Or did he play around it? Anyway, but yeah,
what were we talking about?
very, very impressive during this review.
Yeah.
I was very glad to see it go, even though I was a player.
Yeah, see, I first started playing Hearthstone pretty much right after some of the Miracle nerfs. So, I missed a lot of it. Yeah. Yeah, that guy.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if I can deal with this. Especially now that I'm earning.
Yeah. How am I gonna deal with that?
Punch it really hard!
I wonder if he has the dragon now.
You wonder if the last card in my deck was a dragon?
Yeah.
What are the chances?
That's the second... Well, technically the 3rd Chilma you've played. I don't really have a choice right at this moment, so we're gonna find out. Aww. Aww.
And I'm out of cards, and all I have left is a heal bot at this point.
Yeah.
That might help me, but I doubt that's gonna be too much, unless I can get something from you.
Yeah. Anyway, well, since I have no idea what we were talking about anymore... I know we were talking about Miracle Rogue. Oh, you're a dick.
We were talking about killing.
Yeah.
We were talking about them killing an archetype. So the thing with Magic currently in Legacy, which is the biggest overarching format in all of Magic, has a deck called Miracles. Pretty much Legacy.
Bye.
Yep, I'm gonna go ahead and see that. Pretty much Miracle Rogue took this from the Legacy deck in Magic.
Yeah.
And what it is there's one card in Magic called Entreat the Angels. And the casting cost on it is much cheaper if you cast it for the miracle cost, which means as soon as you draw it, you can play it for the miracle cost.
Okay.
So the deck runs things like Sensei's Dividing Top, which says look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put them back in any order.
Oh, okay. So yeah, then they could...
Manipulating your deck to do that. So, finally, Wizards is taking a look at this deck and saying, okay, this is no fun to watch, it's no fun to play against, we're going to start targeting.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. They're targeting and banning cards from them.
Yeah. Which... And they effectively killed Miracle Rogue. I mean, there's like a Grand Tournament version of Miracle Rogue that just doesn't work.
But I think if Wizards had the chance, I think Wizards would have looked at it and said, okay, you know, I think if Wizards would have been Hearthstone, they could have looked at it and been like, okay, we can nerf this.
Yeah, could have nerfed it. Yeah, instead of having to kill the deck, they could have just nerfed it and basically killed the competitive aspect of it. Well, so I mean, what are some other cards, in your opinion, that they could nerf instead of, other than Boom?
Other than Boom, Brahmash just comes out of the woodwork and fucks everything. I don't like his design.
Yeah, I think they made Gromash a little too powerful, but since he's a warrior exclusive, so you only have to play against him in one deck, and even like control warriors, even they don't always play Gromash anymore.
Okay, so but there's a card in almost every deck that I have. Well, in almost every archetype.
Yeah.
Grom is a problem just because of his explosive nature. You drop him on turn 10, you go whirlwind, and he's big. If the board's clear, it's done. Game is over.
Yeah.
Paladin has the same thing. Tyrion Forger. You drop him, and it's either deal with it or you're gonna die. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's either silence it, or just let it kill you, basically.
Yeah, that's your two choices, and it sucks. In Shaman, I hate Totem Golem.
Yeah. Totem Golem they made a little too strong. Like, the Overload 1 helps to balance it, but I mean, if your opponent coins it out first turn, that's a big problem.
So, no, even the Overload 1 does not justify this. This card is a 3/4 for 2. So that's 7 total power for 2 costs. Add the Overload in as an additional cost, that's still 7 power for 3. That's ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
That's insanely ahead of the curve.
Yeah. And I mean, part of why they made Totem Golem so good is because they want Shaman to be a thing. Shaman has not been competitively viable for pretty much forever. But, I mean, even with some of these powerful cards that they've given Totem Shaman, it's still not a terribly viable deck.
I mean, it's still more viable than certain cards. Like, Miracle Rogue is not coming back.
Ever.
It's gone forever. So,
Because of how good a job they did killing it.
yeah.
I mean, they nerfed like half the cards in that deck. I know not really half, but they nerfed... I came into the game after they had nerfed... Or not after they had nerfed Leroy, like right as they were nerfing Leroy. I had one, and that's how I got the gold from it.
Yeah.
Or dust, not gold. But I mean, I was still basically just starting the game. And so, while I played against Leroy a few times, it wasn't like an all-the-time thing. But now...
At that time, though, it was an all-the-time thing.
Yeah. But so, what they need to do... But then, after they nerfed Leroy, they could have said, okay, well, this is still alright. And then they nerf Gazetine Auctioneer. And it literally killed the deck, because at that point, it was too expensive to play. And... I just don't know that...
Sorry.
I'm saying, I just don't know that... That was stupid. I should have killed one of your Nubrians. This is why I'm not a Legend player. But see... I don't know. It's like they looked at that deck and they said, okay, well, this deck is overpowered, we want to kill it. And it's the fact that they didn't stop at nerfing Leroy, that they went ahead and nerfed Auctioneer also, and completely killed the entire deck that I have a problem with.
So, jumping off this tangent for just a minute, what about, like, Freeze Mage?
Did they nerf anything in Freeze Mage? Is that why it doesn't play?
They didn't. Freeze Mage is still viable. The problem is, I hate Freeze Mage.
Yeah, Freeze Mage kind of sucks. Thankfully, you don't play against it that often because everyone is too busy playing Mech Mage, which I hate.
See, the thing with Freeze Mage, though, is it uses the same basic concept that Miracle Rogue did. It tries to get Antonitis down and then throw a bunch of cheap spells out to generate fireballs.
Yeah.
So instead of Miracle Rogue being where they just drew a bunch of cards off of Auctioneer, now you've got this card actually generating threats for every single spell being cast.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Antonitis is only a 1-of, it's legendary.
Yeah.
And it sits at the 8 mana.
thought it was a 7-drop. I thought the
I don't.
yeah, I don't know. I think if I remember right, Antonidas is a 7-drop, but then obviously you have to either have the coin or, you know, have Emperored to get. Well, that's interesting. Like what? It's like, sure, I'll take that, I guess. Aw, you suck. I play that card sometimes too. It's so fun.
I don't know why I didn't just kill you.
Neither do I.
I'm totally distracted by our discussion. But, I mean, yeah, okay, so let's say it sits on 7, because I don't remember if it's 7 or 8. So if it sits on 7, you play it on turn 7, and you assume it sits there. You play it on turn 7, and it doesn't sit there, all is good. Play it on turn 7, it sits there for turn 8. You have 8 mana.
Yeah.
People have been playing this deck with cards that say, you know, give yourself a spare part. Add a spare part to your hand and your enemy's hand.
Yeah.
Stack that with Arcane Missiles, with Mirror Image. You're making 3, 4, 5 fireballs a turn.
Yeah.
You unload those turn to turn to turn to turn, it very quickly gets over.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. The problem I have is the fact that they're using this. The spare parts is a draw into fireballs.
Yeah.
Like that was the exact reason they said that they nerfed Miracle Road.
Yeah, they nerfed they nerfed Auctioneer, and then they went ahead and did the same thing with spare parts with Mage. I mean, it's not exactly the same thing because you're getting spare parts instead of actual cards, but oh, okay. We'll just play 21st century problems. First world problems, however you want to say it. I feel like I'm gonna lose. Yay! Jake will have something to say about that. I am really stupid.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I actually said while you were away with your call, I said, yeah, Jake's gonna have something to say about that.
Oh, I definitely do. That was bullshit.
Yeah.
Healing Wave is so stupid.
It is, but it uses that stupid joust mechanic that only like, it works more in control decks, and that's obviously not what this deck is. But, like, what's your opponent going to do to stop that? Like, other than playing a deck with a higher curve, there's nothing they can do.
That's why I like Magic so much more than this game. In Magic, they actually have cards to say your opponent cannot gain a lane.
Yeah. So, what is the next topic? Well, I mean, we were talking about some other cards that need to be nerfed. What do you think about Mad Scientist? Do you think it needs to be nerfed? I mean, we talked about this earlier, but just so the stream can hear it.
So, Mad Scientist, I think, is... A lot of people call for it to be nerfed because it's a 2-2 for 2. So, I mean, it's on curve, it's perfect. But, on top of that, it brings a secret from your deck onto play immediately as soon as it dies. So, all secrets cost 2 mana. So, essentially, you're getting 2 power, or you're getting 4 power, 4 stats for 2 mana, and an additional 2 mana spell for free.
Yeah.
So,
well, 1, 2, 3 mana spell. Because Paladin spells are 1-drop, Hunter are 2-drop, and Mage are 3-drop. And Mage spells are undeniably the strongest.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it is... I think the card is a little powerful.
Yeah.
But nerfing it won't change anything. If you nerf it by changing the cost of it up to 3, then it's still essentially 3 mana to get a 2/2 on the field, which is behind curve now, but it's also allowing. It's still allowing super secrets to play for free.
Yeah.
And if you nerf it by changing its combat stats, then people are going to play it even more because they can just play it and no guarantee it's going to die.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are they going to do? Make it stronger?
Yeah. So I think this is a card that, as I was talking about earlier, where Wizards would be able to nerf cards like Hearthstone does. I think this is one of those cards that if you look, Hearthstone actually has it in the opposite problem.
Yeah.
I can't silence that.
That does suck.
So I think Hearthstone. I think if there was any card that absolutely should have been banned as soon as they got the chance, if they ever do start banning, it should absolutely be Men's Knights.
Yeah, because there's not really anything they can. They can't really add health to it.
There are no
Dropping.
that can be made.
Yeah, the only thing that they could possibly do that would make it, I don't know, slightly less played would be if they made it a 3-drop instead of a 2-drop. But, like, that's not going to make it... That's not going to make enough difference.
No, it still has an insane amount.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of power, especially in mage decks, because, like we were talking about, mage has such powerful spells.
Yeah, Mage and Hunter both have game-changing secrets.
Yeah.
Mage has Duplicate, they have Ice Block, Ice Shield, all these abilities that just completely change the face of the game. And Hunter has it too. Maybe not the same extent, but a lesser extent, where they have things like deal 2 damage to all enemies. It's a consecrated essentially.
Yeah.
Trap, Bear Trap even. I mean, Snipe. If someone isn't expecting a Snipe and it comes down, I mean, that just, it changes everything.
Yeah, if people actually start playing Snipe, it's really going to screw with some people.
Absolutely, and that's kind of a problem. But they can't change it to only target certain secrets either, because then those secrets are going to be immediately known.
Yeah. Gotta set you up for combo, you know? Yeah. Well, that was actually a pretty decent segue because, I mean, I agree with you 100% on Scientist. There's nothing they could really do to fix it. I can't believe you run 2 freaking owls in that deck. But anyway, no. Right now, as anybody watching stream can see, I am playing Combo Druid. Combo Druid is so stupid, in my opinion. I think they've got to do something to fix Combo Druid. I don't know what they could do. I mean, it's already a 9-cost combo. Yeah, if you just happen to have the right stuff, you can play it, you know, a little earlier than that. But it annoys me to no end when I'm just going along playing a game, not paying attention, and I let myself get down to, you know, 16 health, and my opponent just combos, and I hate it, and it makes me actively hate playing against druids. Now, no, Force of Nature into Savage Roar, because Force of Nature gives you the 3 2/2s with charge. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
Druids have always had this kind of niche where they've had a combo.
Yeah, Druid either has combo or ramp. Those are the only 2 ways anyone can possibly play Druid. And ramp got a little stronger in the Grand Tournament because of... Yeah, Darnassus. I couldn't think of what it was called. But yeah, it just has these ridiculously strong cards and combos, and I hate it because in one turn you can go from having your opponent in a pretty good spot where, you know, you feel pretty good about what's happening, to just losing. I mean, that game, I didn't combo or anything. I just happened to have the, you know, better, really high mana cards than you did.
Yeah, well, I had 3 Giants in hand, but no taunt generation.
Oh, yeah, that sucks. So, I mean, I don't really know what they could do to combo Druid to nerf it. I just wish they could think of something, because it's so annoying. And people watching stream, yes, I do have a combo deck, because if you can't beat them, join them. That's my defense. That's the only defense I have for having a combo Druid deck. I want to...
I think the only change they can make the combo Druid to make it less viable would be to change Force of Nature and give you 1 less trend.
Yeah, but then
Savage Roar to get 1 less tap.
But see, I think it's Force of Nature that needs to change. I think if they made it a 4-drop spell that gives you 2/2 Trents with taunt that die at the end of turn, I think that would be the nerf to make on it, because making anything cost more, that doesn't really matter to Druid. They're just going to ramp into it. Now, if they increase the cost to make it a 10 or 11 cost combo, well, I mean, 10 wouldn't be a huge deal because you still get to turn 10. The only thing I could think they could do would be to make it an 11 cost combo, but that would be essentially killing it, because at that point you would have to have a ramp card, you would have to have an Innervate in hand to do the combo, which they can't really do, because that would kill Druids, because, like I said, there's only 2 kinds of Druids that people play. They play combo, and they play ramp, and most decks play a little bit of ramp in combo.
I think if they nerf it, it'll go up to 10.
Yeah,
which is acceptable, because that means that the game would have gone on super long. You'd have to make it to turn 10 without being killed, and you would have to make it to turn 10 without your board state being so irrelevant that just playing.
Yeah.
Here's the deck.
Well, I think now I'll play the next deck that needs to be slightly nerfed. And you probably know what I'm talking about. Mysterious Challenger.
Oh god, this deck.
This card has made Secret Paladin a thing.
So, for anyone who doesn't know what Mysterious Challenger is, it is a, what, 5/5 for 6?
It's a 6/6 for 6.
Okay, it's a 6/6 for 6. Doesn't sound a big deal. It's on here. However, it puts every single, it puts 1 copy of every single secret in your deck onto the field immediately. This thing is a reverse mad scientist in that it does it when it hits the field instead of when it dies.
Yeah.
On top of that, it also drops every single secret in your deck onto the field.
Yeah.
What this says is
you win.
Not really. Basically, what it is you drop this and hope your opponent doesn't clear your board. You drop this into a board that's already established because you want to hit Mysterious Challenger, or you want to hit a good combo off of Spirit of Competition, which says
Competitive Spirit.
Competitive Spirit.
Same difference.
Which says at the beginning of your turn, all your creatures get +1/+1/+2/+2.
What's it? +1/+1.
All of you +1/+1. So ideally, you set up a combo like this. You
Yeah.
muster for battle. Eventually, on turn, you usually muster on turn 4. And then on turn 5, you try to coin Mysterious Challenger and hope that they don't clear your board.
Yeah. Well, and what they have to do is they have to actually clear the board, because what Mysterious Challenger decks are doing is they play 1 Noble Sacrifice, 1 Avenge, and I'll explain what each one does here in a second, just to give everybody an idea of what's happening. 1 Noble Sacrifice, 1 Avenge, 1 Redemption, which those are the 3 important ones. And then, of course, Competitive Spirit that Jake already described.
Now, see, I'm actually seeing a lot of decks run 2 Noble Spirits and 2 Avenges now.
Yeah, and that's what my deck does. The magic number has been 7 secrets, and it's usually 2 Noble Sacrifice, 2 Avenge, and then one-offs of competitive spirit, redemption, and repentance. Now, noble sacrifice, when an enemy attacks something, it summons a 2/1 creature, or minion, excuse me. Summons a 2/1 minion, and it redirects the attack into that brand new 2/1 minion. So what happens is, when you play Mysterious Challenger, your opponent attacks with something, it triggers Noble Sacrifice and brings up the Defender. After the Defender, it triggers Avenge, which gives a random a random minion +3 attack and +2 defense. Random friendly minion. Yes, I have no idea what I said earlier, but yes, random friendly minion. I can't talk. And then that's the first two. The third one is Redemption. Those are the important three, because then Redemption resummons the minion that just died with 1 health. So it resummons that 2/1 Defender. That 2/1 Defender then just sits there. At this point, you've got at least 2 minions on board, generally more than that.
At least one of them is going to be a 8/7.
Yeah, generally it's going to be 9/7. Generally it's the 9/8, because it's +3/+2. Generally it's Mysterious Challenger that gets buffed, and it's a 9/8 at this point. Then, at the end of your opponent's turn, it triggers Competitive Spirit, which gives +1/+1 to all of your minions. That is huge. That means that you are getting more value than any card really...
in the game.
Ever. Yeah. Any game. And it's only a 2-drop. Or, I mean... Sorry, looking at different cards. It's a 6-drop. So, I had thought about it. They can't really... The best nerf that I could think of for Mysterious Challenger would be either to summon like 3 random secrets. They could do that instead of 5. Because if your opponent hits all 5 secrets, that's just a ridiculous amount of value. And of course, I'm not hitting my Mysterious Challenger this game. I pack 2 because it's an epic, which is also ridiculous that we're talking about... Most of these cards that we're talking about are going to be legendaries. Most of the cards that people say, oh, that needs nerfed, are legendary. Dear God, you're playing Patron. That hadn't registered with me as to why you weren't hitting me with the... See, this is what happens when you're not paying attention when you play Hearthstone. You end up getting Grim Patroned. So, the next card that needs nerfed... No, Grim Patron does not need nerfed. It is 1 deck, and while, yeah, Grim Patron Warrior is one of the top competitive decks, always, no matter what, I don't think the deck needs nerfed. I think it's perfect the way it is. But I play Patron Warrior, so... My... One, really... You suck so much.
So the fun thing, anyway, going back to Secret Paladin. The only thing about Secret Paladin, some of them go up to 10 secrets, and when they go up to 10 secrets, they usually include 1 more competitive spirit, so that's 8. But they'll also include 2 of a spell called Humility. Is it Humility? No, it's not Humility. It is.
Repentance drops the health of the next minion you summon, or the next minion your opponent summons, to 1. And just by the way, this is a truly great combo right here for everyone watching.
No!
It's happening.
You bastard!
Sorry. Anyway, what were we talking about before you rage quit?
Secret Paladin, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, Secret Paladin. I thought about it, and I think the best thing they could do to it would actually be to make it bigger. If they made that card if they made it with Dr. Boom's stats, I think that would actually make everything a lot more balanced for exactly, because then you could BGH it, because then BGH would absorb the repentance, then it would buff something else with the avenge, it would then at that point, I mean, you just have to start playing around avenge and noble sacrifice rather.
No, see, I disagree. I think the only change they can make is the one we talked about earlier. They're gonna have to change the amount of secrets it can bring up, or they're gonna have to change the power totals.
Yeah.
Because the 6/6 for 6 is good. The 6/6 for 6 bringing 10 more mana of spells down is insane.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I think the only way to do it would be to really, again... You're gonna do this again? Oh, okay, you're not.
I don't have the mana. So I'm using this to draw cards.
Yeah. That works too. Yeah.
Shut up, Hippo.
Yeah, so... Let's see how this goes.
Oh, I hate you.
Okay, so just so the stream can see what just got summoned.
Okay, so...
That got summoned. That got summoned. That got summoned. Well, I mean, I hardcast that, but... And then that. So, he's going to have to play around these things. Which...
It's noble sacrifice. He's got probably repentance. He has competitive spirit and probably an avenge. So what avenge means is I'm gonna have to find a way to kill this entire board really quick. Competitive spirit means much the same, and that's the way to do it. Kill that. It'll give avenge to something. We'll resurrect the 3/2 or the 2/1.
2-1.
Yep. Okay. So now we have to deal with a 9/8, which, as you can see, is going to be rather simple.
Execute.
And now all he's got left is competitive spirit. So you can see it's actually not terribly hard to deal with if you know what's coming.
Yeah.
And now there's no secrets, nothing's really been problematic. So that's all the power of Secret Paladin. It's good, but if your opponent is, I think the big power in Secret Paladin is that it wasn't expected at first.
Yeah. And it's such an automatic play. If you draw that turn 6, or if you draw it turn 5 and you have coin, you coin into it. If you draw it turn 6, you play it. If you draw it turn 15, you play it. It is an automatic play, whereas it's an automatic play, and your opponent has to deal with it the next turn. Your opponent knows that he has no other option other than to deal with it.
So I think the real secret, the real power of that card, or the deck itself, was the surprise. Nobody ever expects anyone to come into a Magic tournament running a tier 3 deck. In the idea of Modern, no one expects anyone to be running bombers. And it's much the same thing here. Nobody ever expects someone to go for the 50-50 chance.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Nobody was expecting a deck to be playing Secrets. And then that card dropped. And I remember seeing people's reactions to that card. Everyone was thinking, oh, well...
No! Yes!
Anyway, that was interesting.
You salty right now?
Maybe a little. So...
Anyway, no one expected the deck, so when it actually came up, it was a massive surprise to everyone. And nobody knew how to play around it, but now people are learning to play around it. I think we're going to see it fall off.
Yeah. And I mean, it already has fallen off a little bit in favor of just general aggro paladin, which, again, I hate aggro, just by the way. Yeah, maybe a little bit. See, my personal Secret Paladin deck is run a little differently than probably most Secret Paladins, because mine is definitely more mid-range. And you really suck, just by the way. I hate you so much. Not that this will do any difference, because I didn't have it. I didn't have the consecration. But anyway, what this deck, my personal deck, does is it plays a few sticky minions early game in hopes that they, I mean, I haven't drawn any of them, in hopes that they stick around long enough for turn 5. Turn 5, drop Loatheb, which makes it so that your opponent just can't play spells the next turn. Turn 6, Mysterious Challenger. And turn 7, Mookless Champion. And then give all those minions that I just talked about +1/+1. And if I can get those off and Mookless Champion turn 7, it's game over. But in this case, I lose.
The thing about Secret Paladin when it first came out is it was a one-card combo.
Yeah, exactly.
But you tried to turn it into a multiple-card combo.
Yeah.
Why am I actually getting credit for this?
I got it to rank 8 last month in ranked, but yeah. I mean, I think we've pretty much talked about everything I needed to get off my chest. We've been going for just over an hour.
Have we?
Yeah, been going just over an hour. Anything else you really need to talk about?
No, I think that's the Hearthstone episode.
Alright. Well, in the future, I would like to keep this mostly Hearthstone related, but it's going to be about a lot of different games. We're both very, very serious Halo fans. We love Halo. I'm sure we'll end up doing a Fallout podcast after Fallout 4 drops.
Yeah, so as to the future of this, I really want to cover, we have all these games coming out in the next 2 months that are big. We have Halo, we have Fallout, we have Star Wars, we have Call of Duty coming out again. Everything's coming out in this end of year time period, this last quarter.
It is the end of time. Fallout 4 ends life. I'm looking at my webcam right in the face. Fallout 4, the end is upon us. Jobs will be quit. Hygiene will be lost. Society as we know it is going to collapse because of Fallout 4.
So part of this is the other guy, the guy on the other side of this mic, Chris. He's also a brand new computer nerd.
Yeah, I just got my computer. I'll be putting the specs of my computer in on my stream so that everyone can see what exactly I got.
Part of what I tend to do, since he's off on the weekends, is introduce him to PC gaming. So I think think we're also going to run a part of this podcast as, you know, a newcomer's input on PC gaming, all these games that are free or cheap, and, you know, how someone coming into this side of it sees it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can do that. So, anyway, well, I think it's time to end the first episode of whatever the hell we're going to call our little podcast.
So before we end, what do we want to? What's our next goal? Halo.
I think our next goal is probably Halo. Yeah, because right now today is October 3rd, and so we've got what, 24 days until Halo 5. I think it's the 28th. 27th or 28th. But anyway.
24 days.
24 days. So, anyway, that is what's going to happen. I mean, I'm sure we'll have a podcast before 24 days are up. Make sure that you check out his stream at Sietod. I wish I knew how to spell that. And I would.
Close enough.
Yeah,
and
something like
check
that.
Out his stream at Primetime CE23.
And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, I will post links down below to both of our channels. Thank you very much.